Yo, what is up guys? Welcome back to Andy's Reviews, and today we are on part 6 of our multiple part MCU series, where we rank the entirety of the MCU from best to worst, including all the MCU movies, Disney Plus shows, Marvel Netflix shows, and Sony movies, all in a very cohesive manner. So let's get into it. And of course, our next movie up is, of course, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. This movie is completely useless. Honestly, just skip it, honestly. The only thing incredible about this movie has to be Scarlet Witch, played by Elizabeth Olsen. She was absolutely incredible and a standout in this movie. And honestly, this movie should be a Scarlet Witch movie and not a Doctor Strange movie. He was literally a side character in this entire movie. And also, I do have to admit that Director Sam Raimi did give an amazing niche to this movie, considering how this is the most horror-like MCU movie we have ever seen, with a bunch of jump scares and horrific images. That was absolutely incredible. And I have to admit that some of the action sequences were pretty good, especially the Battle of Comertage and all of that was absolutely pretty good. And I do have to say that I actually like the color grading of this movie for some strange reason. It was very vibrant, colorful, and all that. I actually liked it for some reason, and therefore I believe that this movie deserves a solid D-tier ranking on this list, right in front of Spider-Man. Which, of course, brings us to Miss Marvel. Honestly, the show is pretty good in my own personal opinion. Honestly, Iman Vellani carried the show. She has a very amazing charisma and star power in the show. And I do have to admit that her personality in the show actually works with the character of Miss Marvel from the comics. It was a complete one-to-one ratio in my own personal opinion. But I do have to say that the actual villain and ending of the show was quite lackluster. And therefore, this series deserves a solid C-tier ranking on this list, right in front of Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Which, of course, brings us to Thor: Love and Thunder. Honestly, this movie is completely useless. Honestly, the jokes didn't land. It was a complete waste of the character arcs of God the God Butcher, as well as Jane Foster. Honestly, the cancer storyline was absolutely wasted. I feel that plotline should have been the emotional weight of this movie. Honestly, it would have been incredible seeing Jane Foster going through her journey of cancer and all that, and how she could have ultimately survived cancer. But honestly, the way Taika Waititi tackled that storyline was quite lackluster, and honestly, this movie just doesn't work. The CGI was horrible. The action sequences were quite decent. Honestly, the guy who played Zeus in this movie, Gerard Butler, did a pretty good job in embodying a very Greek-like, accurate Zeus the god and all that. But besides that, this movie is quite useless, and therefore deserves a solid D-tier ranking on this list, right in front of What If Season 1 and 2 combined. Which, of course, brings us to The Defenders. Honestly, the show is quite useless, honestly. It was nice seeing all these characters group up from different Marvel Netflix shows, but honestly, the execution was quite horrible. There's like 5 episodes of filler, the action sequences were quite bad, but just admit that Daredevil sacrificing himself at the end of the season was quite incredible, and was an amazing, inciting incident for Daredevil Season 3, but besides that, this show's quite bad, and therefore deserves a solid D-tier ranking on this list, right behind of Captain Marvel. Which, of course, brings us to Iron Fist. Honestly, the first season was quite incredible. The rest of the show went downhill, especially during Season 2, and especially during Season 3, where I didn't even bother finishing the whole series. I watched the first 30 minutes of Season 3 and was bored and honestly just quit the show. And therefore, this show deserves a solid C-tier ranking on this list, right behind of The Incredible Hulk. Which, of course, brings us to The Punisher. Honestly, The Punisher was quite incredible in my personal opinion. It was nice seeing the bloody gore, blood, and the very awful version of the thing we humans must never do, aka this word that starts with a V. I cannot say it in this review because I don't want to be copyright striked or whatever. And honestly, the show was quite incredible with a very gory you-know-what. And it was absolutely incredible seeing John Berthold reprise the character from Daredevil Season 2. And therefore, this series deserves a solid C-tier ranking on this list, right behind of Miss Marvel. Which, of course, brings us to Luke Cage. Honestly, this show, I didn't even bother watching it because of the negative reviews it received and all that. And I'm just going to put it at the end of the list, right behind of The Defenders, aka the G-tier. Which, of course, brings us to Jessica Jones Season 1, 2, and 3. Honestly, the first season was very good. The villain of Coogler and all that was very cool. Especially the detective sequences we got to see Jessica Jones embark on as he discovered who really did something to her in the past. It was absolutely incredible seeing that storyline play out. Season 2 was quite decent. I forgot the plot, but I remember it being decent. Season 3 was a complete catastrophe, especially with the plotline of Jessica Jones finding out that her mother is a monster created by some government organization and all that. That was a complete trash, honestly. And therefore, this series deserves a solid C-tier ranking on this list, right in front of Venom Let There Be Carnage. Which, of course, brings us to She-Hulk. Honestly, this show is completely useless. Don't watch the show. The only good thing about the show was Hulk and his interactions with Jennifer Walters. But besides that, this joke didn't land in the show. The show really didn't have a story to tell, honestly. Oh my god, don't even get me started on the freaking ending of the show, seeing the big, bulky, smart Hulk and all that. Honestly, it was absolutely horrible. This show is an atrocious whatever it was. And honestly, this TV show deserves an automatic D-tier ranking on this list, right in front of Captain Marvel. Which, of course, brings us to I Am Groot. Honestly, this show's pointless, honestly. Groot is cute for many Marvel fans, but for me, he really wasn't, and these shorts are the worst thing in the MCU, including all the Marvel Netflix shows and whatever. Honestly, this show deserves an automatic D-tier ranking on this list, right behind of Luke Cage. Just because it's useless. Which, of course, brings us to Marvel Legends. Honestly, Marvel Legends is a very good concept, especially considering how it recaps the character arcs of multiple MCU characters in the upcoming project that's about to release. Honestly, Marvel Legends does an amazing job recapping events of the MCU, and therefore, this show deserves a solid B-tier ranking on this list, right behind of Iron Man 2. Which, of course, brings us to Morbius. Honestly, I don't know why people hate this movie, honestly. It was incredible seeing Dr. Morbius become a vampire with the amazing CGI as he jumps into the night with a bunch of purple cloaky magic and all that. It was absolutely incredible. I don't know why people hate this. Honestly, people just hate Sony for way too many reasons, honestly. But Morbius was by far better than Madame Web and had a very interesting villain in the actor of Matt Smith and how he was able to embody the villain of this movie, whose name I forgot. But besides that, this movie deserves a solid B-tier ranking on this list, right behind of Marvel Legends. Which, of course, brings us to Black Panther Wakanda Forever. Honestly, this movie was very incredible in my own personal opinion. Do I like Shuri's Black Panther? No. But I do have to admit that Marvel did an amazing job given the circumstances of Chadwick Boseman's passing, who passed away a couple of years ago. And honestly, Marvel did their best job, honestly. This movie was pretty good, given the current circumstances, and had one of the best Latino representation of superheroes or anti-villains in the entirety of the film industry, honestly. Namor was pretty cool, in my personal opinion. He was played by a Mexican dude. He did an incredible job, and honestly, Namor really stole the show in this movie, especially with his hometown and culture of Kukulkan or something like that. No, his name was Kukulkan, but the place where he was from, it was called something else, whose name I forgot. But honestly, this movie was absolutely incredible. The action was incredible. Honestly, the music was incredible. Especially the Dora Milaje music was absolutely incredible. And I do have to say that this movie is quite memorable and by far the most memorable project of Phase 4. And therefore, this movie deserves a solid A2 ranking on this list, right behind of Daredevil. Which, of course, brings us to Werewolf by Night. Honestly, this show was quite useless in my personal opinion. It was nice seeing a black and white project in the MCU, but honestly, the musical aspect of Marvel didn't really pop in my mind. I didn't really like it. And therefore, this project deserves a solid C-tier ranking on this list, right behind The Incredible Hulk. Which, of course, brings us to Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. Honestly, it was quite nice seeing the Guardians again, once again, after many years, after James Gunn's firing and rehiring at Marvel. And besides that, this special was quite useless, but I do admit it was a nice holiday get-together with the family, watch this during Christmas. Honestly, the jokes did land. Kevin Bacon did land in this short mini-series, whatever it could be called, honestly. And honestly, it's a very nice Christmas special. And therefore, this special deserves a solid B-tier ranking on this list, right in front of The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Well, there you have it. Please feel free to subscribe to the channel down below, drop a like on this video, and hit the comment button down below to let me know your thoughts on the MCU and what you thought about this ranking and all that. And I cannot wait to see you guys in the next video.